Alright guys, how's it going out there? Rooster here in Tennessee with another video for you. We're going to look at something a little bit different today. Have not done a video on one of these. This has actually been sent in to me from Mr. World Radio 785. He also has a YouTube channel. He's been building some of these single device two-piece amplifiers. The transistor that it uses is a MRFx1K80H. I know that's a mouthful, but that's the part number for the transistor. And this one is set up, they're a 65 volt transistor, I should add that in. So that's why you've got the two-piece power supply here. You could obviously put this in one cabinet if you really wanted to, but this is a 65 volt power supply. It plugs into 110, and then you've got your connector here that jumps the amp and the power supply together. Sorry about my mess of wire back there. The power cord for the 447 and the cables that connect the amp to the power supply are running back there. Again, it's 65 volts. The way this one is set up is to take about 100 watts PEP to give you max output, and that's going to be around 25 to 30 watts average. Now, the radio I'm going to test it with is going to be my 447. I think this one's doing around 80 watts peak, so we're not going to necessarily see full output, and I think it's only doing about 15 average where the dead key and everything's set at right now. But it'll give you a general idea of what you can expect out of one of these things. I didn't have the absolute perfect radio to drive into it, so we're working with what we've got here. A little bit more about the amp. Obviously, this is the amp section. This is the power supply. You've got the cables that connect the two. This plugs into the wall. All this does is run a hot and ground back there to that Anderson connector that connects the power supply to the amp. Take a look at the back of it here. You've got a switch in the up position. Basically, the keying circuit works, and it'll key, you know, by RF, just like any other transistor amp. You put enough dead key into it, and it keys up. In the down position, it's activated with a foot pedal. So, why would you want it to be activated with a foot pedal? Well, you can run it on sideband that way. You don't have to worry about, you know, flipping a sideband delay switch on the front or anything like that. You can just run your delay manually with a foot pedal. And plus, a lot of people like to use a foot pedal. Maybe you want to use this thing as a driver. Maybe not. You know, maybe this is your last box in line and you don't want to key it up every time. Well, flip the switch down and talk on it with a foot pedal. You've got a jack right there to plug the foot pedal into. Over here, you've got another lead coming out. And what this is solely just for the fan. Okay? Remember, this thing is working off 65 volts, so you have to have a 12 volt source for the fan. This just goes to a wall wart, if you will, power supply, plugs in the wall. Excuse me. That way your fan, you can run your fan off of it. Again, 65 volts, you can't really run the fan off this power supply, so you have to run a little separate supply for it. That's about it. Runs quiet, doesn't make a lot of noise or anything. Considering the power output of it, excuse me guys, trying not to cough all over the video. Considering the power output of it, doesn't take up a whole lot of real estate. And obviously you could set this like on a lower shelf, or you know, and then set this up top. That way you're not looking at the power supply or whatever. Assuming the fans kick on thermally on this power supply, because I have not kicked them on. Power supply is not hot at all. I've been tinkering with this amp for a little bit, but they haven't kicked on. So I'm just going to assume that the fans kick on thermally. That's generally how these switching supplies are working. The fans don't run all time unless it gets to a certain temperature. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to just show you how much the 447 is doing, and we'll go from there. Turn it over here. We'll just do channel 20 for our baseline there. 100 watt slug in here. This is average power, bottom scale. Oh, so what? Swinging 13, 14 watts average. 6 or 7 watt dead key. And then PEP. Hello, audio check 1, 2, 3. Now, as you see, the 447s are more responsive when you're just talking into the mic. Audio check 1, 2, 3. And if you audio, you know, even that high pitched audio brings down the power. So when we're testing this, we're just going to talk into the mic. And I've noticed that with these 447s since day one, they're actually just more responsive to you just speaking into the microphone. So that's a good thing, you know. You get real world numbers out of it like you're just talking into the mic. So around 80 watts to, what, 82 watts or something. That's not going to be enough to give us full output out of this thing, okay? We really need 100 watts going into it to see full output. And these things are drive sensitive. So what I mean by that, they are tough as nails when it comes to SWR and stuff. They're more forgiving. But if this thing is set up for 100 watts PEP, that means 100 watts PEP or less. That doesn't mean 125 and you can get by with it, okay? If you overdrive these, they are not going to be teetotally forgiving like some stuff is, okay? That's, you know, there's obviously drawbacks to every kind of amp made. Your standard transistor amps have drawbacks. They're cost effective, but they are sensitive to SWR. Your tube amps, you know, warm up time, you're dealing with high voltage. Finding somebody to repair them if they tear up, you know, that's obviously a drawback for some people on that. These, the major drawback is you need to have an accurate watt meter when you're running one of these, and you need to know what your radio is doing for sure, okay? Because overdriving one of these is not gonna end well. So you're trying to think. Oh, cost of the device that's in there, I think they're around 200 bucks, so that's something to consider when you're comparing them to other amps. So, you know, something in the same range as this, figure out how much the transistors would cost to repill it versus you've got one single device here, and, you know, kind of figure that out. I think they're about 200 bucks a piece. And this is just a single device, single transistor, if you will, that's in this thing. All right, so that being said, let's turn this guy on here. And we may end up having to back our striker down a little bit, turn a dead key down on it. We'll see how it does out the gate here. This is going to be average power first, and we have switched to a 2500 watt slug, if you guys can see that. Top scale. Flip our keying circuit on. That'll help us out. Hello. Okay, so you can see our dead key's a little high. I'm actually going to end up backing that down. To run this thing in cruise mode and just talk, about a 400 watt dead key is probably where you should run it. I'm running a little bit high right now. That's probably about the max I would run this at myself. Again, World Radio 785, he recommends to run it at a 400 watt dead key if you're going to be talking on it a lot. Hello. But just for an intermittent test, remember, our striker doesn't have a ton of swing on average power because we've got it cut back a little bit. So we got like a, what I say, 6 watt dead key going in, swinging about 10 to 12 average, 13 average, and it's swinging from about 5 to about 650 average power right now. Now this is going to be PEP. Remember, the striker is more responsive when I just talk into the mic. Radio check, 1, 2, 3. Audio check, 1, 2, 3. Audio check, 1, 2, 3. That's the top scale we're looking at there. Audio check, 1, 2, 3. 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 Audio. So about 1500 watts PEP. Now again, we're putting 80 watts in, and this amp is set up for a 100 watt PEP radio. It will do about 18 to 1900 watts PEP if we put the proper amount of drive in it. Doesn't sound like a lot, that we're only missing 20 watts. You think, well, that shouldn't make that much of a difference. Remember what I said, these things are drive specific, and that goes both ways. If you underdrive them, the fall off is significant. If you overdrive them, like I said, it's not going to end well. So the further we get away from that 100 watts PEP that this thing is set up for, it's going to have a significant drop off, or again, can be, you know, risk damaging the amp. What I'll do is I'm just going to back the dead key down a little bit. Now we're going to lose some average power when I do this. We'll call that about 400. And again, I don't even know what our radio's doing average now, but the fault, you know, it's going to go down. Hello. Yeah, so it still swings to 500 average, but we are swinging less average into it. Go back to PEP. Audio check 1 2 3. 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 Still hanging around 1400 watts. May have fell down just a little bit. But that's it, guys. Let me know what you think about this thing. I like it, you know. Heck, I may end up getting one of these from him for myself. But this one is for sale. It's a nice running amp, you know, I think. Obviously, I haven't had time to sit here and talk on one for 2 or 3 weeks. My goodness, I've had his amp sitting here. He shipped this thing to me probably over a month ago, and has been real patient with me to do a video on it, and I appreciate that. Just been so busy, haven't had time to do something like this. So, been real patient to work with and everything, and I appreciate that. He hadn't hounded me about it. It's been sitting, like I said, I just unpacked it a couple of days ago. But let me know what you guys think about it. Questions, comments, shoot me a text, 423-299-3535. I am not the end-all, be-all expert on these, okay? I'm certainly not. So if you have questions, you know, he can probably answer some questions down in the comment section, or I can get with him. You know, you guys can message me, and I can relay some questions for him about it. I believe they can be set up for any amount of drive. But if I start carrying them, they'll probably all be set up like this one. You know, set up for a 100 watt PEP radio. That way, the more common radios can be used with it. All right, guys, that's it. That is the 65 volt MRFx1K80H. That's a mouthful. Rated at 100 watt, 1800 watts PEP, around 700 to 750 watts average. Again, we underdrove it. We still saw 650 watts or so average and about 1500 PEP. So be interesting to see how these things do, what kind of response we get on this. Everybody have a good one. Rooster in Tennessee, roostercb.com. Catch you guys later. See you, bye.